Good morning, guys. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I had a conversation with a friend of mine who is telling me about the fact that, there's so many people in life that have betrayed him, that have hurt him, that have abused him, that have used him, that have done so many wrong, evil, and very nasty things towards him. And he was saying to me that every time he's doing something, he gets flashbacks of those memories and they continue to hurt him and it continues to affect him. And I listened through the whole time, he took hours and hours going on and on and on. And as a good friend, I listened. And at the end of the conversation, I said to him, look, we all have to get to that stage in life where we decide what is it that we want, right? And once you've decided what you want, what then follows is you then obviously chase or go after what you want. So I said to him, listen, I don't know a formula. And I've studied this throughout history. I don't know a formula where you can get rid of bad thoughts. The formula is not there. Bad thoughts will always be there. You'll always remember. Whenever you see something, you'll remember that person that broke your heart, or a trigger will happen. Those things will always happen. But what we can do is straight after remembering, you can change what comes next. So for example, you would see the thought, right? And your brain would attach it to that pain that happened. And at that moment when your brain attaches it, you could put a trigger in front of that specific thing so that whenever your brain goes through that same channel, it then goes to this new trigger that you've placed. So let me give you an example. Let's say, for example, one of your employees has once stolen money from you. And this has happened to me when an employee logged on to certain accounts of mine, obviously, and took money, etc., etc. And it was a lot of money and, the whole hurt and everything, betrayal, etc. But every time something like that comes up, like when I hear of some employee stealing money from somebody or something, I always put a trigger so that my mind automatically goes to the trigger and it doesn't go to that specific place that, I'd go into a state of being hurt or being sad or whatever the case is. So it's so important that we realize when we confront the fact that there's some thoughts that you can't change. As I was sitting with this friend of mine, I said, I wish there was something that one could say or do that could get rid of all this, but it's not possible. But what we can do is put a trigger before it. So I'll give you an example. Whenever you think about something bad, put the trigger and let the trigger be aligned with what you want to achieve. So for example, if I'm thinking about, listen, this employee betrayed my trust, this employee stole money, etc., etc., the trigger that I would put is every time I think of that, I should think of the loyal people that I have around me. So that's my trigger. So whenever I get triggered or I see something or I read something in the newsletter, an employee stole money from somebody or something, I'll always put that trigger to be like, oh, okay, cool. I'm so grateful for people that are loyal in my life. And that's where my mind goes. And over time, you'll notice that that trigger becomes very automatic. But that's how our minds work. And it's so important that you understand that your mind doesn't work in terms of when you think of that person, you become sad, you become angry, etc., etc., and you continue. That's not going to help you in any way. But if you put a trigger before it, then every time it happens, and first it will be very playful, by the way. So you'll be like, oh, this seems very silly. But over time, you'll notice it will happen progressively because the mind works in terms of patterns, habits. It works in terms of patterns. So it's a whole bunch of patterns, and all these patterns interlink. All of them interlink. Every thought is linked with another, and not only with another, but also thoughts of other people, etc., etc. So it's so important that every time you have a thought that you want to get rid of, or that you don't like, or that upsets you, or that changes your state, or whatever the case is, that you put that trigger to turn it to the positive. Turn it to the positive. Turn it to the positive. And after a while, that pattern is built. And every time that trigger happens, automatically you turn it into the positive. But it starts off as actual work. So if you've ever had an experience that whenever you think about something, it affects you, it hurts you, etc., etc., put a trigger in it and change it. And automatically you'll notice your thoughts will change. I'm about to head out for my morning jog. Exercise, guys. Exercise. Cheers.